Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. I am so excited for today's podcast because it is all about my anti-goal setting goal setting. I've been procrastinating this for ages because, oh man, 2024 was a ride. The last time I developed a framework for goal setting, it was in 2018. I have not revisited it in 4 years, but one thing completely changed my life in 12 months and how it can relate to you and your fitness and health journey. But this one habit has completely opened so many portals within my head. I feel like all the reading, all the self-exploration I've done has allowed me to now update with a whole heap of new ways of viewing your goals in a way that you feel empowered and in a way that your whole life transforms with you. So I'm just going to get into this because SMART goals are stupid. I'm going to tell you what to do instead, because whether you're starting fresh, building on progress to level up, to approach a new goal, or whatever is in your mind for this year, this podcast is for you, because what truly matters is not where you begin and where you are right now. It is where you are going and how you plan to get there. Because goals are like maps, but without the right tools to navigate, even the best map will not get you there, especially if they're not updated and you figure out that roads are blocked and there's detours and now there's a whole new road system that they've been working on, but you haven't traveled that place. There was a time we used to go, we used to come to Queensland every single year, put in the GPS to come. It was one of those old GPSs. It was taking us round and round in circles until mum goes, haven't we been here 3 times already? And then dad realized that we were going around in circles. We were using an old map. This is why this is so important. A map is a simplified representation of a complicated reality. Think about it. A street directory isn't what a complicated reality is. That's the same with goals and resolutions. They're like maps. They provide the direction, but they overly simplify the journey because fat loss is so freaking simple. Muscle building principles are simple. Fat loss is easier than muscle building, but life is full of twists and turns and surprises, and then add in the human element, and then there's emotions and tantrums and work and family, and then there's other people's emotions, and then there's other people. We need tools to navigate this terrain, and we need to recognize the limits of our circle of competence as well as the limits of our circle of what's within our control. Because if we worry about things outside of that, that's when a lot of stress, anxiety, rumination, lack of action, disappointment, frustration, and no real achievements get done. And it's hard in the moment because we're flustered with emotions, and many times we don't slow down to recognize exactly what's happening. We tend to set goals outside of our circle because we want to achieve big things. Goals do not come without failures, and goals do not come without struggle, because we want to achieve things outside of where we are now. Like, we want to achieve new things, which means tools that we don't currently have. And this is exactly why SMART goals fail and traditional New Year's resolutions fail. They're focused so much on the outcomes. I want to achieve X by X. Even breaking them down isn't going to get you there. This framework that I'm going to teach you is missing from most goal setting. And this is why self-development is the best thing you can do, because it factors into all elements of your life. It's just that most of us don't slow down enough for it, or we feel like it's a waste of our time, because it's like, why not just use this time to chop a tree down instead of wasting time sitting at a desk sharpening an axe? It doesn't feel tangible. It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything useful because I'm not smashing down a tree. Well, you're sharpening your axe so that you don't have to spend the next 3 hours chopping down a tree, instead sharpening the axe so that it only takes you 10 to 30 minutes to chop down the tree. And you're going to come away from that a lot less fatigued, which kind of leads me on to the first part of this. I remember one year where I had a list of all these different things I wanted to accomplish, and by the end of the year, I didn't really accomplish much at all, and I was frustrated. And it wasn't that I wasn't trying or that I didn't want it bad enough. I wanted it super bad, and it just turned into a whole pool of negative self-talk and beratement and I'm not good enough and almost leading on to another year of doing the same thing because I just felt so sorry for myself. Then I realized it was the fact that I was trying to achieve too many things, albeit small things, in 1 year. Because in the context of life, if you're a mum, you have your kids, you probably have kids' sporting events, then school for the kids. And then if they don't go to school, then there's entertaining them at home. There's all these different moving parts in our life that we need to somehow fit all of these goals into. And if we just have X as a goal and we go by the SMART principles, what is a realistic time frame? Well, most of us don't even know what the realistic time frame is. And even if it is a realistic time frame in the context of what we want to do, I'm going to talk about why it's still going to fail you. You are going to have frameworks for pivoting and readjusting and reviewing and feeling confident in whatever it is that you do, because you are going to learn not only how to set goals and habits and systems, but how to come back from setbacks and not only achieve it and feel amazing doing it, which is probably the best part, but you're going to keep it. Flaws of SMART goals. I've already touched on the fact that we focus on outcomes instead of habits and systems. If you think of a marathon runner, their goal isn't to just cross the finish line, but it's to train consistently. It's to run. Like, you're not going to just be like, I want to run a marathon one day and then run the marathon. I have women that are training to run a 5K. They can't run the whole thing, but then they get better. I just had one client run her fastest 5K yet. After she was trying for so long, she decided to name it as a goal. I was able to program her for it, and voila, we got a 5K, the longest run she's done. It's not a very easy thing to run that long consistently if it's not something you've really ever done before. And many of us have set goals in different ways that obviously did not serve us. So what is the goal of a marathon runner? It's to train consistently. It's to learn how to fuel their body, how to fuel their recovery, and to recover properly, and to realize that more isn't better, and all the other lessons you learn along the way, because more isn't better. Another example, I had a client come to me for triathlon training, doing sometimes more than 7 sessions in a week. And she was questioning everything when I scaled everything back less than half of what she was doing. And then when she did her first triathlon, she's like, I don't know how to feel right now. I feel wrong. I can't express it because how did I get my fastest times and feel really good right now? And it's the day after, whereas usually I'm trashed and trying to recover. She couldn't fathom the fact that she got her best results ever from doing the least she's done, because it's not how much you do, but it's how well you do it. But less is not more unless you make that less more. It's strategic. This is where it's like, what's in your circle of competence? If it's not, then ask for help. It's probably the best investment you will ever make into your future. So figure out what the actual goal is. The goal is to learn how to do those things, because then you will run a marathon. Let's think of this as first principles thinking, breaking goals down to the absolute core components. And these cannot be emotion-based. This is like facts that you can't dispute. What is a core component that we need to focus on? Fat loss. Okay, the core component is you cannot get over a calorie deficit, but a calorie deficit is everything, the whole metabolism. What you eat impacts energy expenditure, and your energy expenditure impacts what you eat. It's all like combined together, and your energy expenditure, only a little bit of it is your exercise. Most of it is the movement that you do outside of the gym, but it's not even just that. It's how much does your body give off as heat? How much is it wasting as energy? If you're in a calorie deficit, your body doesn't want to waste any energy. Whereas if you're eating a lot more food, your body is going to be wasting a lot more energy. Everything is impacting upon each other. And if you're stressed and if you have food anxieties and a terrible relationship with food, that impacts hormones and the physiology of everything around food. Like, everything all impacts each other. A map is a simplified representation of a complicated reality, which brings me on to point 2 of why SMART goals suck. Unrealistic assumptions, unrealistic expectations as well about what you want to achieve. SMART goals assume that life is going to go perfectly as though you're a robot and you're going to follow everything to a T, and nothing's going to happen, and work isn't going to throw another project on your desk. The kids aren't going to get sick. You running late to something and work calls and says they want you in earlier. Setbacks, injury, they're all going to be there. It can feel like everything's a catastrophe and you want to quit and nothing's working. There are going to be black swan events that aren't typical of your reality. Then there are also going to be unexpected things pop up that happen quite frequently. Being able to solve those problems without getting down on yourself is when you learn to build flexibility within your life so that you can succeed no matter what. Because life is always going to happen. Think about the Christmas period that just passed. Holidays always happen, and every single Christmas, every single end of year, it is going to be similar. You want to enjoy yourself, and you don't want to feel this guilt and, oh my goodness, it is overwhelming, and it always happens that way. We don't remember it because a whole year has just passed. So we need to learn how to build flexibility to adapt without losing this momentum and without losing that enthusiasm. Instead of looking at what others are doing, how others are winning, go back to first principles thinking. What is it that we know to be true about getting to those outcomes? If you don't know and it's not in your circle of competence, ask for help. But always go back to those first principles. Then we can design actions that fit our life based on those principles. Because the principles will always exist. It's just how do they fit in the context of your life? Now, the next part, willpower doesn't work, which we know. This is where developing systems to make decision-making easier and more systemized and predictable is the goal. A simple system can be like prepping your gym clothes every morning, having a routine where you get up and you put your gym clothes on straight away. Remove decision fatigue by meal prep. Your lunches. Figure out what you want to eat every Friday and you write your shopping list, and then every Saturday you do your shopping before you put the food away into the fridge. The fresh veggies that you get, you chop them up, put them into containers. If you're like me, most of your veggies will be frozen because that's going to save you a lot of effort. And you might, instead of putting the chicken straight into the freezer, weigh out 7 bags worth of 150 grams of chicken breast in Ziploc bags and then shove them in the freezer, so then you can just pull out that chicken, chuck it into the air fryer, and then pair it with whatever you want. That's something that I do. So making it easier to set up your environment for success versus relying on willpower. SMART goals really emphasize what's a realistic time frame, which is short-term thinking, versus what's going to happen after this thing. After this timeline, what exactly is it that I want to achieve? Which, if we go back to the first example with the marathon runner, doesn't set a goals for run a marathon. It's all those little habits stacked, because if you run the marathon and then you stop doing all those basic principles because now you ran the marathon, whoop-de-doo, done. If you stop doing those things, you're going to go back to where you were before. What is the mean rate of progress? The average rate of progress, because at first progress is going to be really fast, and then we can expect progress to always be fast, but that isn't reality. When you start off in the gym, you're going to get strong really quick. Things are going to feel like they're picking up really quick, but if you always expect that to happen, you're going to be severely discouraged, or you're always going to chase that, and chasing really quick wins, you're not making real progress. If your logbook is going up every single week, you're doing something wrong. Like, that isn't progress. There is no such thing as progress going up every single week. Progress is hardly, if ever, linear. Lagging indicators like physical changes take time. They're not in our control. Our actions are. So if we're only thinking of waiting for progress, wanting to check to see what our progress is, digging out the seed to see how much more it's grown, watching the flower to see the rate that it's growing, it's discouraging patience and perseverance, because when that progress stalls, or when, my goodness, there's no flowers anymore because it's winter, aka when progress isn't visible, we're going to give up. We're going to get down on ourselves. We're going to decrease our effort, because most people are only motivated or only put in their best efforts when they physically see the results happening, when their body's physically leaning out or looking lean, which is why they always fail, because you can't always be in that state 24/7 if you want to make it something that you can sustain without so much struggle. I was the person that believed that. As soon as I finally hired the coach, did the build, got very uncomfortable and complained. I complained a lot for the first 3 to 6 months. Now, my only thing is, I'm worried that I'm not building the muscle that I want to build. Once you're over 30, 35, it's a lot harder to build muscle. And most people keep themselves in a state where they're either maintaining or losing. Because if you're not focusing on building, you're losing. This is where the self-destructive cycle begins, because when unrealistic expectations and timeframes clash with your reality, this lack of motivation and effort just perpetuates the cycle of self-doubt, defeat. And when you put more pressure on yourself to achieve this, and then wonder why things aren't happening, and get down on yourself, and then you wonder why, and then you stay stuck in this loop of feeling shit. And many times people quit there, or they jump to the next thing, which makes things worse. So we're going to redefine success. Enough of the negative crap. I want to give you some practical tools. The power of simplicity. The most meaningful change comes not from doing more, but from doing a few things consistently and well. And the other quote is, you can do anything, but not everything, and not all at the same time. Kind of like you can eat everything, but just not all at the same time at once. There are trade-offs. For example, picking your mountain habit. I had a client that literally just chose drinking 3 liters of water every day is going to be her focus. Small, but that increased her energy. It reduced her snacking, reduced her cravings, and it made her show up to the gym a lot more often. But identity revolves around, what is it that you do every day? What are your habits? Identity and actions are what shape your results. So instead of obsessing over the results, focus on who you want to become and what habits that person prioritizes. Once we prioritize the water, the next thing was W, walking and water. Walking and water. She felt a lot more motivated to go to the gym because she felt good within herself. She had a lot more energy. She wanted to be able to train her best that she could. Walking and water, more sustainability in her food habits, because that helped regulate her appetite. It made her want to eat better. It made her want to fuel herself for her workouts, which then overcrowded the snacking, the emotional eating. So figure out what your mountain habits are and simplify things. It's never too small because everything compounds. Good habits and bad habits, they compound, which kind of leads into the next point, habits over goals. That's the second part of redefining success, because whatever you do, it's going to compound and it's going to lead to whatever outcomes you get. And those habits can be good. Those habits can be bad. The outcome, depending on the input. But if the input is going to be continually putting too much into the system, it's going to clog, and the output isn't going to be great, because then you have to fix the machine. You just broke it because it just got shoved with way too much. My practical tip to you is to think of it in a system of your minimum effective dose, which is something that you're okay with, something that's good enough. And then on either side, you have, this is my optimal. If I can't get the optimal, here's my minimum effective dose. For example, my optimal, I want to get 12,000 steps a day. My minimum effective dose will be 8,000 steps a day. So 8 to 12 is where I want to average. I do not ever want to get below 7,000 steps. The no-go zone. You can do this for food. You can do this for any habit. Because if I ask you what is one habit that if you master it by the end of 2025, that would completely shift the game for you, what would that be? For me, my reading habit was my one habit of 2025. I set 2. Face care every night and the reading habit. But I also habit stack. I do it when I do my running because I can focus on the book. Just think about how your habits can impact other parts of your life. The reading, self-development. Like, it's all tied to what is the purpose of this. I'm going to contextualize it for you, because SMART goals don't take into consideration emotional and environmental factors. They ignore life's unpredictability. They create pressure and perfectionism. It discourages and eats at consistency. I've already spoken about motivation and effort. A SMART goal assumes no circumstances change from the moment that you set them. And many of us set them from our most motivated state, or when there's not really all that much going on in our lives. If we set them in January and we're on holidays, and then life picks up, what are we going to do? We don't exist in a vacuum. Stress, relationships. You might break up from someone. You might get into a relationship with someone. We're not going to just let our goals go to the wayside, though we may, and then we'll have regret later. It's like, how can I adapt this to still... This is also why it goes to, why is this goal so important to you? I want to reframe the focus first around the whole outcomes are lagging indicators. Outcomes, weight loss, physical results, seeing muscles being built, seeing leanness, seeing strength, like lifting 2 times body weight deadlift. It's all lagging indicators of the habits that you do consistently every single day. You're not going to run a marathon without the habits that you do every single day. You're not going to deadlift 2 times your body weight without showing up to the gym consistently. Not only deadlifting, because you can't just deadlift your weight for deadlift. You need to do all the other accessory lifts. Like, there are different components to getting to where you want to be. There's not just, you can't deadlift your way to a deadlift. You can't squat your way to a squat. There's other things you need to do to be able to get there, because something is going to be a weak link in the system, and we need to address all the weak links so that we can bring you up as a whole. Because if you're only focusing on one thing, getting it as high as it can, as soon as you reach there, it's going to crumble if all the other structures around it aren't strong enough to hold it. Most people will never reach there because the systems were never strong enough to hold you up there to start with. For example, when people are so fixated on a 12-week challenge and then they don't build a healthy relationship with food or all these other habits, and then they get to the end of the 12-week challenge and then they gain all the weight back. We need to have this whole structure built up to support what you want. Anti-fragility. We need to build systems that thrive under pressure and adapt to challenges. Anti-fragile does not mean you never break. It means when you break, you rebuild, either the same or stronger. Kind of like when you go to the gym. You want to break down and then rebuild to be at least the same, so you're not losing muscle, so you keep muscle, or a little bit stronger, a little bit more muscle tissue, a little bit stronger, a little bit more muscle tissue. Like, that's the goal of training. That's the goal of our lives. We want to build back stronger, to be anti-fragile by breaking and coming back better. Systems that thrive under pressure. I've already mentioned the identity part with the marathon runner, but we want to find ways to enjoy it in the process, which you're not going to enjoy it straight away. Like, you can't expect to enjoy exercise, to enjoy making yourself walk more, move more, eat more veggies if it's not in your nature. But if you can't make yourself enjoy some part of it along the way, it's very difficult to sustain. You need to add fun into your life. You need to add other things that you can enjoy. Like, I have a couple of clients showing up to the same mundane routine of weight training. They used to hate it. Now they can actually tolerate the training. Now they're enjoying it because they found a hobby to supplement it. Her strength training allows her to do that. So she's been able to enjoy the process because she's seen how it improves her life and things she now enjoys doing. Going back to now the values-based, because this interludes into it really nicely. What does this mean to you? And I don't like the traditional values bullshit. Like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to show up in life? What matters to you? For me, the words that click are enthusiasm, excitement, expansiveness, influential, inspired, interconnected, and mastery. Figuring out theme words that come together under some sort of umbrella that is the same, because that's why this matters to you. For example, when we went to New Year's Eve, Mum had it in her mind that she wanted to walk 2 hours to this particular beach, which means that most of New Year's Eve on roads to get from a parking lot to a freaking beach. So I'm like, what is the whole purpose? Isn't it to spend quality time together? Isn't it to relax, to breathe in, to enjoy each other's company? So it shouldn't really matter what beach we go to. It shouldn't really matter anything else except those key principles. Why are you doing this? Then you can find that many roads lead to Rome, but you find those out along the way. And that's the beauty of this all, because yes, okay, we're always heading east, but along the way, things are allowed to evolve with us. As long as there are some constants, like weight training is there, but we can shift things. Like, I want to be able to pull up and push up and dip crazy amounts of weight, or deadlift 2 times my body weight, squat 1.5 times my body weight, which now I'm just like, you know what? My squat goals can go on a little wayside, but I want my deadlift goals to like be at the top of the priority list now. I do want to have a half marathon goal, but I've realized now that it is not my main goal anymore, because there is nothing that I want more than to have a body that it's strong, it's resilient, it looks like it works hard for the muscle that it has. Running does not do that. Running does not make me lean and jacked and strong and feeling powerful. I feel fit and athletic when I run, but not strong and powerful. Coming back to why are you doing this? The next real important part of this is anti-goals and inversion goals, because a lot of people don't think about the things that they didn't like from the past year, what didn't work for you, and things that you don't want to become your reality. For example, what don't you want in 2025? I don't want to be burnt out again. I don't want to be inconsistent again. I don't want to be on this cycle of feeling really good and then doing way too much and then being burnt out for a whole week and then doing hardly anything and then feeling sorry for myself and repeating the cycle. Figure out what you don't want to be your reality, and then pause. What has to happen for that to be my reality? For many of you, it might be, I don't want to keep regaining weight again. Okay, what has to happen for that to be your reality? Well, emotionally eating. Well, sneaking food in when I'm feeling stressed, or snacking on the chocolate every time I pass the fridge, or always buying chocolate because I can't control myself around chocolate, or weekend binging, or drinking too much, or letting my emotions get the better of me and then giving up, or just wanting to zone out from life because I can't handle my situation right now, or always putting off the thing I know I need to do to get to my goals. Walking, there's other things priority to me than getting in my steps. where your steps are really freaking important, not only for health, but for your metabolism and for weight loss and for living lean and for blood glucose control and for controlling diabetes. And I can go on and on and on. Don't follow the least resisted path. Regret minimization framework is the goal that comes in with inversion thinking. Anti-goals, inversion goals, what don't you want to happen? Break it down into what has to be your actions within that week, within that day, that lead to what you don't want. Okay, cool. How can we build systems to prevent that? Plan ahead of time, future pace. Really important, future pacing. And then future pacing again in terms of imagine your 80-year-old self is coming to visit you. What decision would they wish you had made today? How about not make? What would they wish from you now? But first you need to visualize exactly how it is that you want to live your life. And a lot of people don't know what they want. They just know what they don't want, which brings me into the next point. So many of us are focused so much on what we don't want. And this is part of a reflection from my client check-ins. If you're focused so much on losing weight and changing your body and how much you don't like your body, you aren't focusing on changing yourself for the better. You aren't focusing on the future goals, like wanting to change your body and picking up on yourself and wanting to manipulate your weight in a certain way because you don't like where you are isn't goal setting. That isn't future thinking. You're stuck in the past because whatever it is that you want to change on your now body and berating it, your now body is a result of all your past actions. So you're trying to change the past versus, okay, what is it that I want? What don't I want to continue? So if you have your now that you do not like, okay, imagine you now in the future. What can you do now to prevent this now from continuing on? There's the gold. I don't know how long I've been on this podcast for, but there's the gold. You got the gold right now. This is now future pacing. We need to future pace. You want approach-based goals. What daily actions can I take now that are going to lead to a better future? Instead of, I'm sick of skipping workouts and that's what I'm doing. And okay, I'm going to make sure that I schedule in 3 workouts that I know I can hit because I haven't been able to be consistent with 4 or 5 in the past. And if I can't hit those 3 workouts, I have my minimum effective dose, and that is I'm going to show up to 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes. I don't have to do the whole workout because I'm just going to make my goal to be consistent with those 3 gym days. I'm just going to go 3 gym days. It doesn't have to be 3 full workouts, just 3 gym days. If I don't feel like doing a workout, I'm just going to go to the gym anyway and walk on the treadmill. That is okay too, because you're holding your goal of showing up to the gym every 3 days. There is no point trying to optimize what you're doing if it's not yet consistent. There's your rule. Get consistent at something before you try to optimize it or make it better or get it to where you want it to be. Because habits stack, positive or negative. So if you skip that because you can't do it optimally, then that is what's going to compound the fact that you don't follow through with your word. You're not going to believe in yourself anymore. You're not going to have faith in yourself that you can do it. So then you're not going to commit to anything because your fear now is, I never commit to everything. I never commit to anything. And I always let myself down. So why would I trust myself? Why would I trust myself to eat more food when I know that I keep sabotaging and I'm just going to get back? So I'm just going to stick to 1,200 calories because it's safe. And then you binge and then you repeat the cycle. You're not stubborn. You're safe. And we know that whole, what is the word? Insanity is repeating the same shit over and over again. Well, it's nothing to do with you being insane and stubborn. It's you're playing safe because of some form of fear because you haven't stacked your level of proof yet. There's a forward way of thinking, not a negative way of thinking. I used to say it the other way, but now I say it this way. Because this puts it in your control. I talked about first principles thinking, so now let's think second principles thinking. Different in the other direction. Instead of going to cause to build something, we're now built something. So let's think about how this action is now going to catapult into the future. This action is going to ripple into long-term results. This action of me saying, no, I'm choosing comfort food is going to ripple into long-term results that you're going to hate. No, I'm going to buy frozen veggies and I'm going to prep some veggies is going to ripple into positive results. You choosing the treadmill, the walking desk, whatever it is, over the easiest action, whatever it is. You can even watch Netflix while you bloody walk, but whatever it is, that's going to ripple into positive stuff. Okay. That aside, we need to We need to plan ahead for challenges, and we need to have plan Bs. Always have plan Bs. Going back to unrealistic expectations again, we need to have if-then plans. If X happens, then I will do X. So if I'm caught up and not able to make it home for the lunch that I prepped, what's the then plan? Okay, well, Coach and I came up with a list of these 3 takeout places, and I have my list of options that I can get from each of them because I've already spoken through this with her, and we have these options because I know that this happens very often. So now, instead of trying to willpower my way out of it, I planned it into my goals because it's not a system bug. It's part of the system. It's not a bug. It's part of the system. It's not a default. It's part of the system. So plan it as something that you can work through so that it doesn't derail you and make you throw your hands up in the air and revert into self-criticism. So common challenges. The most common ones with my ladies are perfectionism and negative self-talk, which I've already spoken about. But now ways to counteract it is, what can I learn from this? You can, like, failing and saying I'm just going to start again fresh, or I'm already prepping for the next day, doesn't help you. Stop picking yourself up after failures. Start pausing after failures and figuring out what went wrong and how can you prevent it next time? How would you improve it next time? What would you do differently? And fail as often as you can, because the more times that you fail, it is so freaking exciting because you build up your toolkit. If you keep doing that reflection piece, you keep building up your toolkit and you become more anti-fragile. The goal is anti-fragility. And the only way to do that is to break yourself often so you become a lot more resilient, like a scar, a very pretty scar, because we're going to have realistic expectations and we're going to focus on performance, consistency, and emotional regulation, because we're going to use the regression to the mean in understanding that progress has ebbs and flows, and it's going to start off really fast and it's going to slow down, and then it's going to get to a point where it is really freaking hard to even sustain progress, because now we're doing the norm, we're average, and that is beautiful because that is progress. Because what's the alternative? Going worse, or doing boom and busts and ups and downs and ending up worse over time and having no real purpose because now you're too busy trying to negate all of the downfalls that you're not living your life, which comes into the perfection trap because you always expect things to be going smoothly. And missed days don't mean failures, and you're not going backwards just because you're not moving forwards. It's kind of like people think that if they're not losing weight, they're gaining weight. No. And just because you start eating more and the scale goes up does not mean you're gaining fat either. And no, you did not gain muscle. Muscle doesn't grow that fast. If the scale went up like that in even a month, that wouldn't be muscle. Muscle is like 200 grams in 3 months. And if you've been doing this for a while, that is even being very generous. I'm lucky to build 200 grams in 3 months because I'm advanced now. It's just that we feel like we're building a lot of muscle because muscle holds a lot of water. Our bodies hold a lot of water and glycogen. And when we eat more, especially carbs, we swell up a little. And I had a client who was complaining about the fact that she feels skinny because she didn't eat all her carbs for a week because she was really busy. And she's like, I lost all my muscle. My body adapts too quick. I'm like, no, you're just kind of human. And your muscles just aren't as full because all humans kind of deflate when they're not hydrated. Just like if you don't train for a whole week, you're going to feel like you lost your muscle because it's not going to be all pumped up. But that doesn't really impact people the more that they've been in the journey because they're not as sensitive to the fluctuations like that. So I hope that sort of helps there. Some reflection prompts that can help. What emotions are currently clouding your judgment about progress? What beliefs or habits held you back in 2024 that you want to work on in 2025? And back to future pacing, envisioning your best self. If you could visit yourself at the end of this year, 2025, what do you want to thank yourself for starting today? How can we integrate some more joy, pleasure, purpose into your life? What needs to change? Or if some things can't change, where can you find that elsewhere? Because if we keep trying to force change in places that aren't going to change, maybe we need to look for that elsewhere. Maybe within your coaching group, maybe connecting with some other friends with hobby groups, people that are on the same wavelength, that connect to the future you that you want to be. What excites you and what can you find more exciting if you change your mindset to it and stop putting so much pressure on yourself? So the summary of this is Gale's fool. No, goals fail when you focus solely on outcomes, when you don't plan for things to go wrong, when you don't think of how can I make myself anti-fragile in the real meaning of anti-fragile. So I hope these mental models help you, and reflect every single time, what is one habit that you can commit to this week? What didn't go well for you this week? And what went well? What needs repeating? The less you focus on, the better you can get at it. Think of, you want a high amplitude of something versus the frequency, like a whole shitload of things. No, you just want it to be deep and great, because the more consistent you can get at something, then you can start to build it. And once that's solid and part of who you are, you can start to work on something else. That's the only reason I can work on other things that are outside of my health and fitness now, because it's such an ingrained part of my identity. So I hope this helps. Progress isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for yourself. And when you show up for yourself, you have the confidence that you can tackle anything. Okay, I love you. Bye. And if this helps, please let me know. Please.